Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for joining this session on how to build your own confidence scale. So this session is being run by Hustle Badger. So I am Ed. I'm one of the co-founders. Susanna, my co-founder, is on the call as well. We provide very practical, ready to go resources to help PMs, which you can find more on our website, and we'll share a few links that you might find useful at the end of this session. This session is really all about helping you master discovery and think through how much discovery you need and develop a common language for that. And one of the tools that we think is really valuable for doing that is a confidence scale, which we'll actually create together. So before I kick off, be really good if you just say where you are in the chat if you haven't done already, but also be great if you could just give yourself a quick kind of like out of 10, how good do you think you are at doing efficient discovery where, 1 is awful and 10 is you're already a master. And yeah, if you just pop it in the chat and then we can see where everyone is, and that'll just help me kind of pitch the session at the right level. And I would say this is going to be quite interactive, like some of it very interactive. We're going to be moving stuff around on a Miro board. If you've got questions and things, the whole point of actually being here on the call is obviously you can ask questions. So do pop up your hand or drop something in the chat, and I'll try and answer those questions as best I can. So with that, I'm gonna crack on um, with the session. So just to start with, I wanted to talk a little bit about discovering more generally, like why are we gonna build a confidence scale? And it's really to answer this core question, like how much discovery is enough? And that's an important question to answer because discovery is an expensive business. So if you think about your confidence going from zero, as in like you have no confidence that what you're building is the right thing, to 100%, this is definitely going to generate an amount of impact that then going up that confidence level is something that you can do, but it's expensive. It takes time. So getting a little way up that curve, I always think of is quite cheap. You go and you have an idea yourself, and you go and share that idea with some colleagues. You get a bit of feedback. That's very, very fast. And by having more perspectives on it, you'll have a better idea of whether it's going to work. So you get the kind of first bit of confidence quite quickly. But if you want to get sort of real significance confidence, like 80, 90%, well, you're probably going to have to do some quantitative analysis. And however good your infrastructure is for running that, running an A/B test is probably going to take weeks. And there's an opportunity cost to that. There's a real cost of doing the coding and so on. So that is quite an expensive thing to be doing if you don't need to. So always you want to think about, like, can you do as little as necessary on discovery and kind of like run your discovery lean. So how do you know like how much you need to do then for any particular feature, anything that you're building on? The way I think about this, there's sort of like four factors that drive the amount of discovery that you need to do. And those four things are the cost to build, the downside, the opportunity cost, and your company culture and scale. And this is kind of rough list. So you might be able to think of a few other categories here. So let me just quickly explain each of those, what those things are. So cost to build, like if you're building something that's going to take like many months to build, you are going to want more confidence than if you're building something that takes, a couple of hours or a few days, right? Because actually, at some point, like if you're only going to spend like a few hours building it, you may as well just build it and ship it, because doing too much discovery could easily take longer than building the whole thing. Whereas if you think about the cost of running a development team for several months, that could run into like tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of pounds. And before you invest that kind of money in building a feature, you're going to want to be really sure that you're building the right thing. So that's kind of cost to build, fairly intuitive. Second one is what I think of as downside. So downside is effectively how badly could things go wrong? So when you add
Yeah,
things to a product,
it's a
when you
huge
change things to
challenge.
a
Yeah,
product,
I lose it of.
then then you could sorry, sorry. There are a couple of people not on mute, which is like fine if you've got questions, but if I hear kind of weird noises, I might just mute you, so they don't disturb the call. So yeah, downside. So when you add a new feature to a product, that can have a very limited downside. Like if you add a new filter to your search bar on an e-commerce play, like nothing bad can really happen. You might like worst case, you put it right at the top of your filters and you push the others down a little bit. I mean, it's like it's not really going to cause any bad effects. On the other side of things, if you're kind of changing your checkout flow, changing your onboarding flow, changing your business model, these are things that could really sabotage the business like very, very quickly. So, if you're adding a freemium plan and you're currently got all paying users, actually the downside risk is that all your paying users stop paying and go free. So that is almost like an existential risk for the business. And again, like some of these, like if you're doing kind of like really big downside, you're going to want a lot more discovery to be really sure about what you're doing. And if you're doing something that's actually the downside is just like not that great, you're fine to go with a much lower degree of confidence. Third one then is opportunity cost. So, and this is kind of related to company maturity as well, and so like how well planned you are. Like, if you are like doing a lot of bug fixes, a lot of ad hoc requests, a lot of incremental improvements, the value of any one of those things is probably quite low. And so shifting around the order and going with something else is not a big deal. And probably the evidence behind any of those things is also quite low. So you don't need much evidence, you don't need much discovery to kind of knock things out of the way. Whereas if you've got like some big strategic project, you've got maybe multiple teams working on it, you've got a solid business case behind it, you've done, weeks or months of discovery behind that strategic project, then again, before you stop doing that and start doing something else, you're going to want a lot of evidence that the thing you are going to do instead is going to be much more valuable. So, and this is, I say it's kind of related to company kind of maturity or company scale because, if you're a startup and you're just shipping stuff really quickly and you're not doing much discovery on anything, then overall your kind of threshold for discovery is going to be much lower. And that's kind of what I put in the fourth bucket is kind of scale and culture. So startups have, fewer customers, less revenue at risk. And so you're generally just a bit more comfortable kind of just experimenting live because again, like, there's less cost to things going wrong. Whereas if you're an established business, you've got maybe thousands or millions of customers, you've got millions of like revenue coming through the business each month, then you really don't want to mess that up, right? You've got quite a lot you can lose, and probably you're fighting for a percentage point here or there in terms of improvement. So these percentages, like, don't take these as hard and fast kind of numbers. Think of this as just conceptually, you want to be like higher up the curve if you're a more mature business, and lower down the curve probably if you're a startup, right? Some people ask me, like, what do these percentages actually mean? And I think of this as the almost like the risk weighting that you would put into a rice score. So if you're doing kind of, rice like reach times impact times confidence times effort, or sorry, divided by effort, and that's giving you a prioritization score for your backlog, confidence, you're going to score somewhere between 0 and 100. So we'll discuss exactly how do you get to that score. It's not something you calculate, right? It's something you kind of like have a bit of a guess at. But that can be a very educated guess. That can be like a kind of informed guess. But there's no kind of universal numbers there to kind of put in. Any questions at this point, just having run through those four things? No. Super. Right. So having run through those four things, you're you could put that together in a little list, a little table, a bit like this. So what are you building? Maybe you're building like similar items, recommendations. So again, e-commerce play. I'm going to put recommendations of similar items at the bottom of the product page. And so that's going to push people to other pages. Okay. What does it cost to build? Maybe that's going to take me a few weeks. What's the downside? Feels pretty limited. Scale, in terms of, well, oh, sorry, I've got this. No, I've got this right. So might say we're kind of medium, and opportunity cost, that's like, maybe we can think of something else we're going to do, like review highlights. Okay, that's pretty low. So again, these are not kind of numbers that you're putting in. This is fairly qualitative, but based on this qualitative assessment, you can start to kind of compare feature by feature and say like, okay, well, which do we want more discovery for? Do we want more for, feature A, feature B, feature C? Right. If we thought we needed 50% on the scale last time, what do we want this time? Is it the same? Is it 50%? Or is it, 60, 70, 80%? So you start to get a sense of like, for your company, for your team, where do you want to be on that confidence scale? Okay. So you kind of like, as I say, like, where do you want to be? 60%. So this is the amount of discovery that we want. And the question is then, how fast can we get to that level of confidence? And therefore kind of meet that principle of doing as little discovery as possible to be really efficient and get building, but get building in a low risk way given what we're building. That makes sense. So on the building confidence side, that's then comes into the confidence scale. And the principle here is that like, not all evidence is equal. And again, conceptually, this is all a bit hand wavy, art, not science. Um, I think of this in different layers. And the categories I think of it as five different layers. You might think of it as four or three or whatever. That doesn't matter. But you have intuition at the bottom. That's kind of like ideas you come up with on your own. And then I think you get a bit more confidence with planning. So that's going sharing that idea with people in your team and discussing it with other people around the business. And then you start to get better confidence from anecdotal data. So you go and share it with a few other customers and get their feedback. And then you start to get kind of more like research type of evidence. And that gives you a bit more confidence. And that's kind of going and speaking to a lot more customers and kind of, starting to get into the boundary of, um, you know, perhaps even quantitative if you're doing surveys and things, or you're doing user interviews, but they're both quite large numbers of those and they're well planned in terms of who you're speaking to. And finally, you're getting to kind of like a data layer. If you really want like very high confidence, then you're going to look at, well, what are the quantitative types of testing we can do? How do we get hard numbers that prove out some of the things that we want to do? So what falls into each of these buckets? Like I say, I mean, like you can come up with your own buckets. And the reason this session is called creating your own confidence scale is I would encourage you to do that. And I would encourage you to kind of run this kind of exercise in your own team or in your own company to establish what do you consider is kind of how much is a piece of discovery worth. So what we're going to do now is dive over to this Miro. And are you now, let me just check, are you seeing the Miro or are you seeing the slide of the Miro? You're seeing the Miro. Okay, so I'm going to dump the link to this Miro into the chat. And you can all come and follow me. And I will talk you through what we're going to do. So this is going to be like a very kind of simple, simple exercise. It's kind of going to show you how you might do this in your own team. So, and I'll keep sharing my screen. I'll keep recording this. If for some reason you don't want to or can't participate, that's fine. You can just watch what we're doing. So you'll see there's kind of like three elements here. We've got a bunch of stickies, which we're going to fill in. We've got a big gray box here, which is our kind of like holding pen for ideas. And then we've got our confidence scale. So what we're going to do in just a moment is I'm going to say to everyone, like, take some of the stickies and write down as many different types of discovery or as many different types of evidence that you can think of, like one to each piece of a sticky, and put it onto the gray box. And then for each of those, so I'll give you a couple of minutes, we'll do that. And then for each of those stickies, what we're going to do is we're going to effectively have a little discussion about where on this chart we put it. No, again, there's no right answers. We can just make up our own kind of choices here. But in this group, we'll kind of align on what we think intuition means, what we think planning means, all the way up. Okay. And then once we've done that, we'll have a little sense of, we'll have a little, uh, we'll play a little game to kind of work out what percentage we would put in our rice model for that kind of band of confidence. Okay, and that's how we're going to come up with it. So first thing, away you go with the stickies. So all the kinds of discovery you can think of, just write one down on each sticky. And then once you've written it down, drag it over to the gray box and stick it there. So someone's already getting started. That's great. I might do a few as well. And again, if you've got any questions at this point, do feel free to drop them in the chat. Probably give you just one more minute because yeah, this is just an example. Okay, so that's probably enough there. So what we'll do now, if you stop writing tickets, I'll drag some of these across and we'll kind of discuss them one by one. So again, like don't worry too much about the labels that we've got on these levels. Just think about sort of like relatively where do these go? Is it like high confidence for you or is it low confidence? And then we'll kind of work those out. So maybe we'll start with like, which probably a fairly uncontroversial one. So A/B testing, is that going to go up the top or down the bottom? Just write in the chat or you can shout out. Top. Okay. I'm going to see if we've got one of these monitors, one of these. Here we go. I'm going to put in a nice little calibration scale here. Oh. So we'll do these down on this little calibration scale, and then you can all plot yourself. So how much confidence is the question? This is going to be low. Ooh. This is going to be high. Everyone see my confidence scale? Right, so I'm going to grab one of these stickies. Idea in the bath. So where would you put it? Low confidence, high confidence. Can you click? Anyone having problems clicking? See a few people waving around. Great, we're going to put that in low then in intuition. Right, let's look at market research. So who wrote market research? You want to give a bit more detail. What would you consider market research? Let's talk about and make a few assumptions here. I'm going to say market research. So you've looked at, high level industry trends, you've got some company reports, saying like, oh, community growth is going to jump by 50% next year, that kind of thing. So macro level trends, where would you put that kind of market research on the confidence scale? Okay, Harry's going to move it up a little bit. Anyone else voting? Who we got? Great. Now I'm going to put it in planning then. Put that over here. Okay, let's pick a few more like fake door test. That's quite a good one. Where are we going to put that on our scale? Great. Thank you, Harry. Right in the middle. I'm going to put that kind of yellowy green. Right. Let's put it in green. Super. What else we got? Customer support tickets. So we've got some customer support tickets complaining about a thing and we're going to fix it. Where does that go on our scale? Yeah, about the same. Put up here. Okay, 3x competitors have it. Yeah, okay, a little bit lower. Put in the anecdote section over here. Okay, maybe jobs to be done type of interviews. So you've gone and done some. This is the one's a little bit ambiguous. I say you've done some, let's call this 10x jobs to be done interviews just to make it a bit more specific. Okay, we're putting that a little bit higher. Okay, and the green one. Trustpilot. So some people on Trustpilot are kind of complaining about something maybe, and you think you're going to build something to solve all their problems. Yeah, in the middle. Great. We'll just do maybe three more of these. So technical spike. Actually, let's not do technical spike. That kind of confuse things. Concierge test. Okay, so actually, you're not going to build a thing, but you're just going to do it manually for a small number of customers. Oh, yeah, very high. Great. Let's put that one at the top. Right. Social media posts. So you notice some people on Blue Sky, very trendy, saying, "Oh, it'd be great if only product had feature. That'd be awesome." And it's got at least 5 likes on it and one reshare. Okay, it's kind of like a medium one then. Great. Put that one over here. I will do one last one. Okay, tracking user interactions. Okay, so you're just tracking people around the site. You see them like doing something that makes you interacting with a piece of the clicking a button or on a particular page. I'm going to put that quite high up. Maybe that's a drop off you're seeing between different stages of the funnel. Okay, put that one up here. Okay, so you kind of get the idea. Each one of these you can do as your team. You can vote on it, kind of like get a sense of it. You can have a discussion. Oh, we're talking about customer interviews, but how many interviews are we talking about? Are we talking about like 3 interviews? Are we talking about like 20 interviews? Because that's a bit different of like where we might put it on the scale. Or we're talking about, you know, a technical plan. Okay. I mean, are we talking that, one engineer has kind of like had to play around with some code, or have they done like a full like architectural diagram and, scoped out what the API will return? There's gradations of this, right? And that's why I think it helps to do this, like co-create this and do this all together. But you start to see that you get these kind of gradation where, again, I've broken this up. You can imagine that we just put all these relative to each other, and then we divide them up into groups. Here we've got our 5 groups: intuition, planning, anecdote, research, data. Now, for each of these, we're going to come up with a confidence. So this is what is the percentage weighting you would put into your rice model. So the most you can put is 100%. The least you can put is zero. And this is that, they don't need to add up to 100% or anything like that, right? It's just like they should get bigger as you go further up. So if I told you I had an idea in the bath, what's the chance that you think that that is actually a good idea just at that level? What percentage would you give it? You can put it in the chat maybe. You're going to give me like, Ed, he's a smart guy, 70%. Maybe like, not sure about this bath thing, 2%. What do you think? Depends on who you are. Mm, yeah, Freddie from accounts, 2%. Susanna, 45%. 10%. Any other uh bids here? Right, we'll put in 10%. Oh, got 10% here. Great. Planning then. So we've got our market research. Done a bit of market research. What do we think this increases that percentage to? 20 to 30 from Anastasia. Anyone else got a 15, 20 from Harry? Okay, I'm going to go with 20% then. Great. Anecdote then. So we've got, maybe you've got some social media posts or some Trustpilot reviews. Maybe you've seen three competitors have it. What do you think that confidence level gets to with that kind of evidence? Lily's saying 25, not much increase there. Any other bids for anecdote? 30. Wow, the tweets, but 30, 30, 30, 25, 30. Great. We're going for a nice round 30. Oops. Okay, two more of these. So research. So now we've got screen recordings. We've done a fake door test. We've done some jobs to be done interviews. We've done a concierge test. How high is that going to get now, do you think? How high is that confidence level? 60, big jump now. 70, 80%. Ricardo. What do people think? Another vote for 60. Okay, we'll call this one 65. Okay, final box up here then. So uh, data, what do we think the chance of success is now? So we've done an A/B test. We've done a bit of, we've actually seen some of the conversion rates. So we've tracked some user behavior on site. How high do we think that chance of success is? Oof, 75, 80%. Being very, very cautious here, I see. Okay, great. Let's go with 80%. Great. So if we take a little step back, what you're going to see then is we're starting to build up this board, and we've done this very quickly just to give you an idea how this is run. But you can see that you've built up your different layers. You've put different types of evidence into each of the layers, and you've assigned a value for the weighting of success. So if we now go back to our, oh wait a sec, where are we going? I'm trying to go back to my trying to go back to my presentation here. Give me one moment. Works. No, just one moment. Okay. So you've got this scale. If we jump back here, if you say you want, or we come back here, you say like, okay, we want to be about kind of 60% because of all these things that we've discussed, cost to build, downside scale, etc. Then you're now going to say, okay, coming back to the Miro board, right, 60%. Well, we need to kind of get to the research level. So we're going to feel comfortable that we're going to build this, we're going to commit to this, when actually we've not only done a bit of market research, but we've spoken to some customers, maybe we've done some screen recordings, or maybe we've done some, concierge test. You've got that high up the hierarchy of evidence, right? And this is, each one of these builds. Now, this is not, this is a bit of a intellectual framework to help you think around it, right? Real life is not going to be that neat and tidy because you'll have an A/B test from 2 quarters ago that kind of doesn't really say the same thing, but is somehow related. And maybe one customer's asked for it, and maybe you've got, I don't know, a market researcher point, plus the CEO thinks it's a great idea. It's going to be a little bit all over the place. But even so, you should be able to, like, having this kind of scale should help you kind of align, be like, well, we're roughly here. And what you can do then is say, like, yeah, okay, if we currently feel like we've got like an anecdotal level of confidence and we're aiming to get up to like, really solid research, possibly even like data level, that gives you a really clear indication of what you need to go and do next for your discovery plan. So the confidence scale is kind of really useful for two things. Like, firstly, like right at the start of development, you can kind of set that appetite for how big a deal is this? Like, how much confidence do we want? And then as you start going through discovery, you're going to start saying, like, okay, well, what have we done? Where are we now? And how efficiently can we kind of increase our confidence? Like, do we need to go and run an A/B test, or is that going to take too long? Like, can we get away with running a fake door test? Can we get away with going and speaking to 5 customers, right? And that's something where still, like in real life, you're probably not going to go and do all of that all in one go. So you're not going to go straight from, oh, we've got an idea for a thing, an idea, and then you're going to jump to kind of running an A/B test because A/B test is like very, very expensive, right? You probably work your way up the level of confidence where you have an idea, you're like, right, let's test this really quickly, see if it's got any legs. Right, we'll go and speak to the team, we'll build a quick impact model. Yeah, that seems to work just about. Great. Let's go and speak to some users. Let's have a look at a wireframe. And then you show it to some users, and actually, you know, the feedback on it is rubbish. So you go back to the drawing board and you come up with another idea, right? Or, you do a few iterations, you learn a bit, you do another wireframe, you show it to some more customers, and you go, before we start building this, we really want to get to kind of like quite high level, and you keep building, right? Until you're like, yeah, this is feeling really good. And then we can ship it. But you don't need to complete all these levels, but it just provides a little bit of structure, a little kind of way of thinking around like, are we doing our discovery efficiently? What's the next step, as I say. Now, like I say, it's been a little bit hand wavy all the way through. Unfortunately, there are also a few other caveats as well, where reality does not always match theory. So problems with this, like you can't de-risk big bets. So there are just some things like changing your business model where you can make some assumptions about, who's going to convert and what the average order size is going to be. And you can look at what competitors are doing, but that is something that at some point you've just got to commit to. And it's very difficult to do on a kind of piecemeal basis because you can't have some customers paying one thing and other customers paying something else, right? So in that in that case, right, this isn't something a team can really kind of get their heads around or can de-risk. You're going to have to, um, get the leadership buy-in that this is one of the big bets that you want to make. You're going to have to limit the number of big bets that you can make, and you're going to have to think about how you have like a portfolio of risk and how you manage that kind of portfolio of risk across the whole company. So maybe changing your business model is like that is the big thing your whole company is trying this quarter or over the next 6 weeks. and then you'll try another big bet. You're not going to try and kind of enter a new market and change your pricing model at the same time, because those are both really risky things. Other problem you can get is, you're working a lovely process. You think you've aligned everyone on what these layers are, and you want to ship something, and then you get to a product review, and the stakeholders are saying like, actually, I'm still not convinced this is the right thing. And generally, what that means is that the stakeholders are not convinced by the higher level strategy. So they're sort of complaining that you haven't got enough evidence for your feature, but actually, they're doing that because they just think you're tackling the wrong problem. So in that case, you want to go back to your, I put OST here, I mean, opportunity solution tree. Go back to your opportunity solution tree, kind of like work your way back up it. Do they agree that you should even be tackling this opportunity? Do they even agree that your team has the right goal? Right? Because if those things higher up the tree are not aligned, then you're never going to get agreement that you're building the right solution. Another problem you can come across is external pressure, right? So, you might think, oh, we really need, go and do a fake door test, and then we'll do some concept testing and some wireframes and some usability. And actually the marketing, team are like, yeah, well, that's all great, but we've got our customer advisory board meeting in a month, and we're doing a big release then, and this has to be ready. It's like either in or out for that time. So sometimes you might, or you're signing a deal with a partner, and they've demanded this feature is live by then, right? You don't always have control, in your team of when you do things. Sometimes you have to do the kind of the best job that you can within the time that you've got. So you might still set yourself some goals, right? Okay, we've only got a month before we ship this or before we start building this. How confident can we get in that month? Fine, go and do the discovery on that basis. Think about what options you've got as well. And the other thing that you often see is kind of internal pressure. So the kind of classic case of this is the engineers don't have anything else to build. They're kind of running out of work. And so the temptation is to go and give them work, that uh, you know, isn't fully validated, hasn't had as much discovery as you'd like, to keep them busy. And here I think you need to kind of, I'd say, like, go and have a think about if that's really the right way to do things. Like, if it's low stakes, yeah, maybe it is the right way. Just validate it by shipping it. But if this is like a really big thing, if it's got a big downside, actually maybe that's something where you want to rebalance your responsibilities within the team. So get the engineers doing more delivery or team management, or pull them into discovery so you can actually get the validation you want before you move on. That just about wraps up this topic. Any questions at this point that people want to chat through, either in the chat, or, as I say, kind of come off mute, ask me a question. What do you think of that? Was that helpful?
I thought it was really useful. It's quite applicable to a lot of the challenges we're having now, especially, well, all of it, but this last slide as well is really, really good. So a lot of the things I've come across in the last sort of 6 months, like the external pressure, internal pressure, de-risking a big bet. So yeah, it's super applicable.
Great. Great. Glad to hear that. Thanks, Harry. Anyone else have any reflections on this?
No, basically the same as Ari.
Yeah, super. Thanks, Ricardo. I am going to dump the slides just into the chat here. If you've registered for the event, we'll send them out. We'll send you an email as well. You'll notice on this last page, there's a few more links here. So link to the Miro board if you want to go and have another look at that. That's fine. That's unlocked. So just hope no one sabotages it. There's an article here, How Much Discovery is Enough, which really talks through basically what I've talked through in different ways. Sort of related topics around discovery. We've got a whole bunch on site. So there's one on design thinking, there's one on continuous discovery habits, jobs to be done, speaking to users, all this kind of good stuff. And if you really want to go deep on discovery, then we have a 6-week discovery course here, which you can sign up to as well. So as I say, if you've been on this call, if you've registered for the event, we'll send you these links as well, and we'll upload this recording to our YouTube channel. And as always, follow me on LinkedIn, drop me a message there if you've got any other questions, and I'll do what I can to help you out. That's it from us. So thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you, Ed. Super, super useful. Thank you.
Yeah, massive thanks. Really helpful. That was really useful.
Super.